Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's seminar sponsored by the Lane County Master Gardeners on permaculture, diverse applications, diverse benefits. My name is Jan, and I will be your host for tonight's seminar. During tonight's seminar, you will learn about permaculture and its design principles and how they can be applied in many ways for many benefits. This presentation will show and tell examples of permaculture applied to a suburban property, a lifestyle, urban infrastructure, and economics, plus some unplanned tangents. Before we get started, a couple of items. Closed captioning is enabled and can be turned on or off with the CC button at the bottom of your screen. Also, during the session, everyone will be muted. There will be time for questions at the end of the seminar. To ask questions, please type them in the Q&A box, and we will answer as many questions as we can during the time allotted. If you have additional questions, please contact your local extension office. When you leave this seminar, you will be asked to fill out a short evaluation. Filling out the evaluation will give us valuable information and help us to improve what we are doing. So let's get started by introducing tonight's speaker. Jan Spencer lives in the River Road neighborhood of Eugene and has been transforming his quarter-acre suburban property for 22 years. The place is a permaculture landmark in the Pacific Northwest. Jan has presented from Coos Bay to MIT, blogs for Mother Earth News, writes and produces a syndicated radio show program titled Creating a Preferred Future that plays locally on KEPW 98.7 FM. His website is suburbanpermaculture.org. Take it away, Jan.
All right, thanks, Jan. We're two Jans here this evening. Great, and I appreciate OSU and the Master Gardeners for having this series and inviting me to share with you what I think is just some extremely interesting, timely, powerful information. So it's great to be here. So this information comes to you in a large amount. This is info dense. I want to mention on my permaculture, suburban permaculture website, I have lots of podcasts and links to related YouTube videos, suburbanpermaculture.org, and you can contact me through my website as well. Like Jan mentioned, I live in the River Road neighborhood here in Eugene. When you search permaculture online, what you're oftentimes going to come up with are beautiful pictures of gardens like these. You search permaculture and there's awesome, wonderful gardens. Permaculture is a lot more than gardening. I garden myself, so I love to garden, but the applications for permaculture are enormous. For example, transforming lifestyles, worldview, economics, education, outreach, and reimagining and repurposing assets we have all around us. But let's just take a quick look at some history, some background of permaculture. Permaculture was first identified as an entity with a name in about 1978, but of course, there were people earlier, perhaps even going back way earlier, who could identify with permaculture if they saw a description of permaculture in modern times. But of course, some of these, Kagawa, Ruth Stout, Stuart Brand, Masanobu, Fukuoka, permaculture has many antecedents, but Australians Bill Mollison and David Holmgren are generally credited with identifying and compiling permaculture into an entity with a name. And of course, they would not take credit for most of the content. They took a lot of information and organized it into a usable form. Permaculture can be an approach to land management and settlement design, It includes a set of design principles for whole systems thinking. We'll see a little bit more of that. It has lots of applications. Here's some words and concepts closely identified with permaculture: earth care, fair share, and people care. The word guild, edge, zones are closely identified with permaculture. Of course, there's the first big permaculture design manual, which is like an encyclopedia. So you can go online and you can find out a lot more about permaculture. You could maybe take a permaculture design course if you're interested. And I would imagine some people watching this evening are already well familiar with permaculture. That's great. Let's just take a close look at some of the principles of permaculture. To obtain a yield, produce no waste. When you look at these principles, what it does to me is I compare permaculture principles with what I see every day in the real world we're surrounded by, our consumer culture. I match up what I see every day with permaculture ideals. Permaculture is the closest thing I know to being a blueprint and a guide for creating a preferred future. Myself, I think humans can do better than what we experience every day. People care, planet care, fair share. And this graphic identifies itself many aspects of permaculture application right here in this graphic right here. You can find this graphic online when you go on YouTube or you go online. You can find lots of information explaining permaculture. So I customize permaculture to a good degree to my own self. I apply permaculture. The most important points tells me at the personal level and at the society level, we need to reduce our ecological footprints, produce more basic needs closer to home. Personally, I very much enjoy sharing positive stories. There are people all over the country, there are people all over the world putting permaculture to work in completely inspiring ways. What you see here is something of the contents for this evening's presentation. I'll have the upcoming sort of chapter in purple and enlarged a little bit. Each one of these we'll take a look at. So first, I'd like to share some of permaculture application to my own life and reducing eco footprints, more basic needs closer to home, and sharing positive stories. If I were to put my take on permaculture and what it means to me and cook it down into 5 lines with underlining to make emphasis, this is what I would come up with. My primary interest in using permaculture is it's a powerful tool for reimagining and repurposing and putting to creative use existing built social and economic assets and opportunities for creating a preferred future. And what might that preferred future include? Human activities, what we do, our shelter, transportation, food choices, lifestyles, just about everything, all need to fit within the boundaries of the natural world. And I like the idea that the goal of society is to bring out the best and positive human potential. And I like to think that an economic system would serve an uplifted society. The economic system would exist to provide what the society needs to move towards its goals of uplift and living within the boundaries of the natural world. To me, that's what the task of the economic system is. So when I look at global trends and conditions, which we read about in the paper every day. I think about common sense. I think about uplifted ideals, allies, assets in the community, and permaculture. When I add those together, to me, the product is paradigm shift, deep changes. So let's just take a real quick look. What might be a comparison of what we have now and what a permaculture society might be? And of course, this is just my own take on this, but I know there are quite a few people who would agree with a lot of this. They might have different priorities, but I don't claim all of this is my own private domain, not at all. This just makes sense, like I mentioned, common sense. The consumer culture, more is better. In the permaculture, we could say enough is enough. We don't need more of that. You could say a garage and a driveway in a suburban home, repurpose that driveway and that garage into something more positive. Reclaiming automobile space is a real important value to me. You could say a distant vacation. How about a nearby vacation? A consumer culture. How about a culture that is guided by the wisdom of the world's great spiritual traditions? And an economic system we have now is capitalism, make a profit, externalize the cost. A permaculture would look a whole lot different from that. And what we're going to see in this slideshow is some early examples of what permaculture can look like, because people are doing this all over the place. There just needs to be a lot more. So here is my backyard. I look to my left out my window and I see this, although at ground level, because I'm on the ground level. This is my backyard. It used to be a grassy backyard. There's lots of features here. Let me mention that I'm planning a site tour here. I'll say a little bit more about that later, but there'll be a site tour here at my property. I'll give you the exact info shortly, but I love to do show and tell to show what a suburban property can be. This is what my place used to look like from the street up here. I moved in the year 2000, and the intention from the beginning was to do a permaculture makeover. I did a permaculture design course when I lived in Texas almost 30 years ago, and this was the first time I could really put that information to work. This is what my house looked like 22 years ago, mid-50s suburban house. This illustrates the reclaiming automobile space. This is what this area used to look like. There was the driveway, there was the garage. The garage is now a living space. It helps increase my residential density, which helps decrease our ecological footprints here. This little bit of a sidewalk, that's what's left of the driveway. I took the driveway out and I put that space to much better use. This is the backyard. I am actually sitting right about here right now. This is my space. It's a detached passive solar structure I built in the backyard. This is the structure that was on this site before I took it down and I built this. Once again, increasing the residential density here, and I do have passive solar design on my structure here. Another important part of reimagining suburbia is how can we make common cause with our neighbors? This is a really small example, but it's a good example. Between my house and my neighbor, there was this laurel hedge. We both agreed we wanted to get rid of it, so we got rid of it, and we both have edible landscaping on our respective sides of the fence. Yes, we put a fence up, but my current house, my current neighbors and I are talking actually about taking some of that fence down. We'll see where that goes. But collaborations with our neighbors is a huge important part of how do we reimagine and how do we restore suburbia. There's a term in land use and housing in particular called missing middle. A lot of people live in suburbia, a lot of people live, or some people live, of course, in apartments, but there's kind of a missing form of residential opportunity that is in urgent need. Of course, we know there's a housing shortage, home prices are going up, it's expensive, a lot of people don't have a home, but making better use of structures that are already here. I do that here in my own house. 4 people who are unrelated to each other live in this house, and that helps reduce our ecological footprint. This is the inside of what used to be the garage. This, of course, my space. And then I have 2 other bedrooms. So there are 4 people living on this property, and that helps reduce our ecological footprints. My place is an educational resource. Literally, there have been thousands of people visiting my place over the years to see what suburbia can look like. And these are just some different tour groups right here, all kinds of ecotourism, curious neighbors, permaculture. And here's this info right here. The site tour of my place, Saturday, April 30 at 1 p.m. This is my address, 212 Benjamin. You're welcome to come over. It's great fun to do a show and tell. One of my favorite things to do is to show and tell what I'm doing here on my property. And I'm eager to note that there are other properties nearby where I live. There are other properties here and there all around Eugene that are awesome permaculture transformation sites. And there have been site tours in 10 different neighborhoods in Eugene. There have been site tours to see permaculture, this kind of transformation in different parts of Eugene. If you know about places like that, well, you can organize a site tour and be educational and have a great time encouraging other people to do this to their properties as well. These are just a few just close to home. This is making grape juice. This is one of my favorite things to do in the fall. It's not wine, it's just grape juice. I freeze it. Last year, I grew a pineapple. It was a potted pineapple. It took like 4 years for this to grow, but here's the pineapple, and we had a little bit of a ceremonial eating the pineapple. My transportation is primarily a bicycle. That's my bike. This is a filbert grove along the river. This is that snow that we had a few months ago. This is my lemon tree. I cover my lemon tree if it's going to be cold like that. I've got a big lemon tree under there. These are just some pictures, just close to home, enjoying being close to home. But let's take a look a little bit further afield. This is still River Road. This yellow rectangle is my house right here. These other rectangles are all permaculture friendly homes. They don't all have as much stuff as I do. Some of them even have features I don't have, but all of these are permaculture friendly properties nearby. And really just about all of these have been on site tours at one time or another. So we really want to expand the number of rectangles here over time. This is a picture of a site tour that we had maybe last year here in River Road. We met at a park down the street, and you go around and you visit people with show and tell. This is actually my next door neighbor at the time. This is another nearby property. This is Hycokester. If you know, Hycokester is a well-known food forest landscaper, but this is several years ago. His property looks different from that now. It's way grown up, but it's so much fun to have a show and tell and hear people describe what they're doing. It's educational and it's inspirational too. A few more pictures here in River Road. This was a property that was one of those rectangles in the early going, and then we had a lot of work parties and a big garden. It's kind of a little micro eco village. Some people may know about a place called Dharmalaya. That's a couple blocks from where I live. Lots of permaculture has gone on here over the years. We hosted people from out of town at this big neighborhood conference that was in Eugene a few years ago. At this property here, we had a big neighborhood harvest festival. So people can create celebration and build community right here in your own neighborhood. And I know people are doing that too. We need to do more of that. Another important feature is our neighborhood association. River Road has a neighborhood association, and Eugene has a neighborhood program. There are almost 25 neighborhood associations in Eugene. This is a great place to become involved. If you're involved with your neighborhood association, you can help set the agenda, and permaculture can be part of that agenda. It is here in River Road. And almost any neighborhood has a feature that can bring people together. It might be a creek, or it might be a vacant lot. Here in River Road, of course, we have the river and the bikeway along the river. This is River Road neighborhood. This is the Willamette River. There are people in the neighborhood who adopted different sections along the river. I look after the Filbert Grove. I have a written agreement with the city to look after the Filbert Grove. I have to say, like anybody, mixed feeling, love, hate with the city. But the fact is, the city has awesome programs to empower people in their neighborhoods, to provide tools, to provide support for making positive work on public property in the neighborhood. We've done that with the bike path. Becky's done this in Razor Park. This is kind of happening here and there all over. There are work parties all over Eugene, and the city is a big part of making that happen. Hooray, that's what a city should be doing, is empowering people in their neighborhoods so those neighborhoods can become better places to live. Civic culture is an important word to me, making time to be involved with where we live. This was some series of meetings here in River Road, civic culture. In 2015, we hosted the Northwest Permaculture Convergence at our neighborhood recreation center. We figure 700 people participated. These are pictures from that permaculture convergence. People from out of town. This was just one of the best events I'd ever been involved with, a suburban permaculture convergence. Faith communities can play an enormous role in helping to bring about a preferred future. This is the Lutheran Church here in River Road, and they've made a good deal of space available to put in a community garden. This is a collaboration with the NAACP as well. Not every faith group has real estate like this, but a lot of them do. In a preferred future, this kind of open space would turn into food production. Absolutely. Applied permaculture at home and in the neighborhood has near unlimited potential. So I'm going to get a little bit heavy here, like it or not, but I'm motivated by a lot of conditions and issues, and I'm going to share with you a little bit of what some of my motivations are. The American way of life is non-negotiable. Several people have been credited with that rather dubious quote. The needs of capitalism and the consumer culture are at formidable odds with the well-being of people and planet. And there's enormous inertia to keep doing the same thing. Permaculture is a powerful tool for creating positive alternatives. External costs. One of the ideals of permaculture is people care, is people are well taken care of. Of course, there's planet care and there's fair share. We'll hear about those as well. One of the most egregious aspects of our economic system is it externalizes the cost. What we pay at the cash register doesn't account for the damage that product causes on people or planet. And the price is cheap. It makes it easy to overconsume. Our economic system celebrates overconsumption. And of course, we are aware of climate change. We're aware of so many ecological, environmental trends that are telling us you can't keep doing this. You've got to reduce your ecological footprints in so many different ways. But the economic system can't survive without people over-consuming. People's jobs depend on over-consuming. Permaculture provides us with some ideas and direction for creating alternatives. Again, humans can do better than ruining the planet that we all depend on. Here is another illustration. One of the ideals of permaculture is efficiency. How can we do the best with a modest amount of effort, of purposeful effort? Well, some years ago, I realized that with our economic system, there are thousands, millions of jobs that exist to repair the damage caused by millions of other jobs. I'll say that again. Millions of jobs exist to repair the damage caused by millions of other jobs. You look at this chart right here. These are different sectors of the economy. There's manufacturing, there's retail, there's healthcare, there's education. It's a complex economy. And believe me, there's a lot of good parts to the economy too. But if you just sit and think about what so many jobs exist to repair the damage caused by millions of other jobs, it's actually a humbling thought that this is the way our economic system operates. Any economic activity is good for this economic system. But when you have literally hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars every year spent to repair the damage, that's a lot of lost resources. That's extremely inefficient. Our economic system, an automobile that weighs 2 tons to move a 200-pound load, I can't think of anything much more inefficient than that. And the consequence, of course, is that our planet is severely degraded. And of course, our society that celebrates and thrives on this behavior is complicit along with the economic system. If we buy the products, they keep making them. I'll get to that in a little bit. So how else does our economic system manifest? When I first saw this graphic, this is the footprint of Atlanta, Georgia. It could be Houston, it could be Phoenix, it could be LA, it could be Portland. This is a graphic of Barcelona, Spain. The two cities have approximately the same population. And these footprints are in scale. Atlanta takes up something like 25 times more space than Barcelona does. And that translates very quickly into ecological damage. Is Barcelona free of ecological damage? Of course not. But the economic system with suburbia, cars, freeways, spread out development is an enormous ecological footprint. Is there any way to repair this? I really don't think so. this is almost beyond help. All these cities that have been constructed this way, I don't think there's enough money to fix this. But the more we can, the better off we're going to be with doing different types of projects in our cities. We'll see more of that. We've got a few more of these critique pictures. A primary ideal of permaculture is fair share. People have enough. People deserve enough. Disequity is baked into our economic system. This graphic shows something like 20% of the wealthiest Americans own 84, 85% of the stuff. And even among that, the 1% own over 40. And these are the other 20 percentiles here. This is not fair share, and it's not a stable social, political situation either. These are just more examples. Any kind of pollution is inefficiency. The smog, the clear cut, the air, water pollution, all that is the result of inefficiency. So I made this kind of dark humor collage right here. Our society and our economy is a cargo cult. If you know about the cargo cults during World War II in the Western tropical Pacific, then you'll know more what this picture is about. It's a cargo cult. And a cargo cult is based on myth and superstition. We are a cargo cult. If we quit buying unhealthy products, the market will eventually delete those unhealthy products. If we patronize products that support a healthy and peaceful world, the market will favor those products that do serve a preferred future. Do we have time to make this transformation? I kind of don't really think so, but we got to try anyway. Okay, we're going to shift gears again here. I want to share a few more ideals that could be part of the framework and structure of a preferred future, of an ecological permaculture future. I believe humans can do better. I know they can because there's a lot of them that do. Living within the boundaries of the natural world, make systems efficient and enough. Wisdom of the world's great spiritual traditions. A phrase I like a lot is positive human potential is our greatest renewable resource. Social permaculture, if you're familiar with permaculture, then you know what social permaculture is. Social permaculture is permaculture applied in a social setting. I really like, you could even call this sort of historical permaculture, wisdom of the world's great spiritual traditions. Imagine if a society and an economic system was based on the wisdom of the world's great spiritual traditions. I'm not talking about the religion, I'm talking about the social code, the ideals that these spiritual traditions teach their members and the people that follow those traditions. They overlap over anywhere almost in geography or over the thousands of years. Human behavior is still very similar to long ago, but these ideals can be found in almost any spiritual tradition. Care for the natural world, modesty of lifestyle, when you know you can say, I've got enough, service to the community, being involved in the community, civic culture to help make the community a better place, uplift of the spirit. That's related to the idea of we all have enormous positive human potential and being responsible and accountable for our actions. That could be at the personal level. We could have an economic system that was responsible and accountable. That would be wonderful to see. And many of these actions that can be based on these ideals there's no need for permission or any policy that says you can do this. People can maybe be practicing these ideals in their own lives with their friends, their neighborhoods, anytime with no permission required. I really like this. This is grassroots. This is wonderful permaculture empowerment. So one of the most important fundamental actions I see for moving towards a preferred future is reducing our ecological footprints. Removing our ecological footprints is what I like to call a key leverage point. Key leverage point is a permaculture term. Where can you have the most effect, the most efficient consequence on a system? That's what a key leverage point is. It's something like a martial art. Where's that place where you can get the most for your effort? And I think reducing our ecological footprints is a key leverage point in helping bring about a preferred future. It has application to benefit oneself, one's home, their family, the environment, our culture, our economy, and our future. And what this right here is, there's a place online, there's probably several places online where you can take a survey, you can ask questions, or you can answer questions. This one here, the ecological footprint online, they ask you different questions about your lifestyle, your food, your transportation, your buying habits. You can answer these questions, and then when you're finished, the survey will tell you how many planet Earths would it take for everybody in the world to live like you. And it can be a little bit of a shock. I can tell you that. And here is this is the result right here. This was the result for a particular person right here. But this is what the survey comes up with. Ecological footprint. You can search that online and you can find a survey. There might actually even be several surveys like this. This is a global map that shows comparative ecological footprints. Yellow means the average person in these countries, everybody in the world to live like them would take like 1 or 2 planet Earths. And of course, here's the United States with the biggest collective ecological per capita footprint in the world by a substantial margin, even a lot more than the affluent countries of Europe. Recall the footprint of Atlanta. That's what this graphic represents. The big cars, the diets heavy on animal products, on and on. That's why we have such a big ecological footprint, because we overconsume. So another part of downsizing is, okay, well, that sounds reasonable. What do? We prioritize our time and our money. Instead of maybe having a $50,000 kitchen remodel, we get a rainwater system for our property. We do edible landscaping. We might remove the driveway. We might invest in a heat pump and solar hot water. There's actions we can take with money that can help move us towards a more preferred future. That's what this graphic is all about right here. And of course, permaculture offers itself as an important tool as well for making these kinds of choices, these kinds of evaluations to prioritize our time and our money. I really like this little graphic, a positive feedback loop. This is social permaculture. We have assets to work with in the community. We have allies to work with in the community. There's actions we can take. You bring together the assets and the allies, and then you create the actions to make a change, a project to restore a filbert grove, to maybe help turn a front yard into a garden. When you have actions, you create more assets and you create more allies. This is a self-reinforcing, spiraling up, growing illustration to show what this dynamic looks like, positive feedback.
Jan, you have 20 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, applying application for paradigm shift. Okay, this is our next little section right here. I mentioned the term allies and assets. Every city, every town, home, and even home and person has assets and allies and actions to work with. Almost every organization, progressive organization, community organization exists to help make the community a better place to live. So that means to me, they're all on the same team. This is in Friendly Neighborhood, and some friends of mine have turned their suburban property into a wonderful example of suburban permaculture. They recognized an asset they had. They also made time available to do all this work. Here in Friendly Neighborhood, some of you may know about Common Ground Garden, a grassy, soggy right-of-way. A street was never built here. The people went to the city and asked, can we put in a garden there? The city said, okay, you can do that. A soggy, grassy, former street right-of-way turned into a neighborhood garden that brings people together and builds community there in Friendly Neighborhood. Here's another one of my favorite places in Eugene. This is Douma Co-op on Alder Street near the university. A big house, 10 people live here, and the house is a co-op. They do a lot of cooperative living and shared resources. This old house been remodeled. This is a great example of putting to use an asset that was there for years and then reinvented as a cooperative living to reduce ecological footprints. Here's one of my favorite places in Portland, Kyle Ash Eco Village. A couple of people bought a run down apartment complex that many of the units were unusable because it had been neglected. There were drug shootouts in the parking lot. And now this is one of the most exciting, positive land use transformations I know of anywhere. You can look, Kyle Ash Eco Village. They have a website. They've done a lot of documenting before and now. 55 people live here, and they're learning, living in basically already in a preferred future. Kyle Ash Eco Village. And of course, many people know about city repair in Portland, placemaking. This is really wonderful urban social permaculture of creating places in our neighborhood that show people care about their neighborhood. Placemaking gives people an opportunity to participate, build civic culture, and make their neighborhoods more friendly, more resilient, and more fun. Oh. Another one of my favorites here is KEPW, listener community radio. We've got to get the word out to tell about all these great stories. Local media empowers people. KEPW radio 97.3. Of course, I have a program on Tuesdays at 6:30, I think. But this is another wonderful asset. People took the time and effort to create a local non-commercial radio station. Block planning is one of my favorite land use tools. I wish I could say that this graphic actually exists somewhere, But block planning, the city of Eugene recognizes block planning. A block plan is when the neighbors on a street agree they want to make certain changes to the block over a period of time, like the traffic, the height of buildings, landscaping. A block plan can allow the neighbors to make changes to the block they couldn't make on their own. This is a cooperative effort right here. It doesn't make rules and regulations go away, but rules and regulations become more flexible with a block plan. And I'll show you. This is East Blair Housing Co-op in Whitaker neighborhood. It's not a block plan, but it has aspects of a block plan. It has the co-op owns about 8 properties, and they can manage those properties in a synchronized, coordinated way, just like a block plan could. So for some people don't have space where they live to have a garden, another part of the co-op, they can have a garden. They have a tool room where these are all tools that the co-op owns, and co-op members can use these tools, check them out, use them. Not everybody has to have their own drill, their own air compressor, or all kinds of other tools. This is neighbors could do this in a suburban neighborhood if they chose to. East Blair has a community house. The community, the neighborhood can use that community house. This is where they have events, music jams, meetings. So East Blair is a great example of what block planning can deliver. And neighbors, of course, can make some of these changes without a block plan in small scale. Some of that's going on around Eugene too, people taking fences down. Really exciting. This picture illustrates another location in Portland. Is called our 42nd Avenue Economic Development. Imagine we'd love to see these changes in our community. What would it be like if we actually had an economic financial entity in our community where we could put money into that and invest in the kind of projects that we'd like to see in our neighborhoods and in our community? So that's kind of what our 42nd Avenue does, is Economic Development Corporation. It is a nonprofit. We could sure use something like that here in Eugene. Every neighborhood, there are people who have substantial amounts of money. If they had a way, they'd like to invest what they have in making their neighborhoods a better place. You could call this financial permaculture. One of my favorite places, Onondaga Earth Corps in Syracuse, New York. This is a nonprofit in Syracuse, and it empowers young people. It teaches young people life skills for living more friendly to the planet, for leadership skills. I did an interview with a couple of young people who were involved with Onondaga Earth Corps. Eugene should have something like this in every neighborhood, an Earth Corps. And of course, a big part of permaculture is environmental restoration. This is an example of public empowerment in New York City. New York City has a community plaza program where people can agree, maybe we'd like to change this street so it's more friendly to people and not have so many cars there. They can work with the city, and if they can satisfy certain requirements, a street like this can be turned into something like this. Times Square is probably the most well-known community plaza project in New York City. This is people in a more urban location reclaiming some of their space for people and community building. Pushing back against cars, one of my favorite topics. This used to be a divided highway in Portland up into the 1970s. The highway was removed and now it's a park. This is a place I actually plan to visit. Groningen, Holland. It's a car-free downtown. This is a picture from Copenhagen. Lots of people ride bikes because people feel safe riding their bicycles, and also their urban spaces are not spread out. This would be a challenge to have happen in much of the United States, because our urban land use, like we saw Atlanta, is too spread out for most people. Don't want to bike that far. We've kind of made problems for ourselves. So what would some of these ideas look like in a little bit of a larger scale? This is Santa Clara Square on River Road and Beltline. With applying many of these permaculture ideals, what if we built a micro downtown on the parking lot? Say, instead of having all this parking lot, which is not used very effectively either, but if we built on that parking lot something like this, and included businesses that the neighborhood needed. We had residential up above. The development would have nice public pedestrian spaces, maybe some fountains, maybe some people playing music. There are thousands of parking lots like this all over the country. These places, I'm hoping, are the new frontier for redeveloping with permaculture ideals in mind. The street next to here could have a car lane turned into a bikeway, so people felt safe to bike here. We could have maybe bus rapid transit, the EMX, to provide better service, so people could use the bus or bike or walk instead of driving their car. I can think of 10 places around Eugene where this same model could be put to use all around Eugene, sort of distributed downtown areas. And this is actually my house right here, and this is what I wish it looked like near where I live. This is a permaculture fantasy of what suburbia could become. These are pathways. It's still, people have their private property, but they collaborate and they work with each other to make this a healthier place to live, a more resilient place to live, with different types of edible landscaping, little public places. Again, people still have their private property, but they coordinate with each other to create a little permaculture Shangri-La. Building this would create a lot of jobs. Reworking all these suburban homes would create a lot of jobs. Repairing, a repair economy is what is called for. So let me just.
7 minutes.
10?
7.
7, okay. Yeah, paying for this. How do we pay for this? We prioritize our time and money. We invest in products and services that help bring about a preferred future. And when we don't buy the hazardous products, then we have that money to spend instead on positive products. And when we don't buy those positive products, we don't have to spend as a nation hundreds of billions of dollars a year to repair the damage those products cause. And that hundreds of billions filters down to the local level too. We all pay in a lot of ways for the choices we make, both for the good choices and the not good choices. That's a brief look. How do we pay for the changes? We don't have a lack of money. I think our challenge isn't technological. Our challenge is how we think about the world around us. Applied permaculture, allies, assets, and actions has near unlimited potential. Okay, here's the final little section right here. We're all on the same team. Making common cause for a preferred future can be very efficient. Almost every progressive public interest group exists to repair some form of damage caused by our economic system. Political, economic, public health, environmental, social equity, cultural damage. We're all on the same team. A win for one organization is a win for others. These are all different organizations that could be more effectively working together. What if all of these organizations began to recognize and embrace the idea that we need to reduce our ecological footprints? Because reducing our ecological footprints begins to address a lot of these issues. So imagine all of these stories I've been talking about, I've been describing for the last 45 minutes. Imagine if the League of Women Voters and the Sierra Club was putting this kind of information out to their membership and explaining to them, here's why we need to reduce our ecological footprints, and here's examples of people actually making these changes. You can adapt these models to your own situation. The suburban transformation, the economic development, the block planning. Imagine all these organizations encouraging their members to learn about permaculture and the ideals of the world's great spiritual traditions. Imagine all these groups are working on that. Gee, imagine we start seeing in the newspaper strip malls set to become micro downtown, faith groups becoming community centers, welcoming people to their facilities to learn about these issues. Schools begin new permaculture degree programs. So those are just some kind of fantasy headlines, but bits and pieces of all this are already happening. Again, no need for big breakthrough in technology. The breakthrough we need is in how we see ourselves in the larger world. It's psychological, it's spiritual, it is a challenge to break through the social engineering we've all been brought up with. That is a challenge. People need jobs, people need shelter, people need work. There's ways we can rearrange what we have to be healthier for people and planet. People care, planet care, and fair share. And here is the final slide. Permaculture offers diverse benefits, greater resilience for an uncertain future, good for the local economy and small business, nurture positive human potential, help shape a positive future, good for the environment, help mitigate climate change, good for public health, build a positive community culture closer to home, empowerment and uplifted. Permaculture has diverse applications and it has diverse benefits as well. And all of these elements support all the other elements. That's the great, almost magic of permaculture. It's just common sense. So I'll close with that. Thank you.
Thanks, Jan. That was excellent. So we can take a few questions. So if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A. Let's see. One question, with climate change, is there a good chance that future gardens, instead of raised beds to drain water, will be trench beds to collect water and protect against winds, as in the American Southwest?
Is that a question?
Yes.
It sounds more like a comment or an application. Sounds good to me. Who knows what climate change is going to look like? It's certainly going to be different in different places, but the sooner we start anticipating, the better. And of course, the sooner we start acting in a way that doesn't fuel climate change, the better. But I don't expect to see too much of that. But doing that kind of project, somebody could do that kind of a project. They could teach other people techniques that they know. There could be work parties in the neighborhood. to whether it's that particular action or helping their neighbors turn the grass into a garden. These are the kind of actions that are called for.
So what is the size of your lot and the square footage of the dwellings?
The property is a 1/4 acre. And with a little bit of the expansion of the main house, that's about 1,500 square feet. And then where I am here, this detached is 400 square feet.
Okay, great, thank you. Somebody's asking what you think of the Green Grove co-housing community in Forest Grove, or if you have any knowledge of it.
Say that again, which co-housing?
Uh,
In Forest Grove?
Yeah, let me look at it here again. Green Grove co-housing.
I don't know about Green Grove. I know that there's a co-housing project being built here in my neighborhood, about 7 or 8 blocks away. I'm actually very sympathetic in general to that. I don't know any about this in Forest Grove, but I think that in general, people interested in co-housing probably going to have values sympathetic to what we've been looking at for the last hour. I certainly am aware that co-housing has something of a reputation for costing a fair amount of money to be involved in. I don't have a particular solution for that, but the idea of living more cooperatively with each other or being more neighborly, I think that's a great idea. I would love to see, like in the block planning, a retrofit co-housing to turn existing suburbia or existing residential into a co-housing without building something new. Of course, you would have to have neighbors who are interested in doing that. But let me mention, as time goes on, ideas that seem radical right now, in 5 years, 10 years, a lot of these ideas are not going to look so radical. People are going to be embracing ideas in 5, 10, 15 years they're not even thinking about right now, I'll guarantee you.
Okay, another question. It says, Bravo, I live in a small community in Cedar Flats, looking for groups to join to network and bring our spread out community together. Suggestions.
Find people who have gardens. A lot of people have gardens. Find some people, even if it's backyard, it doesn't have to be a big permaculture setup, but find a common denominator that you could maybe set up a little bit of a tour and put out invitations and invite people to go on a garden tour or some other kind of a tour. That's a great way to meet people, is make common cause, make it fun. But if you had, say, even 4, 5, or 6 gardens within maybe walking distance of each other, to do a garden tour, make it fun, have some beer, have some pizza, have a potluck afterwards, and with the entire purpose, to have fun, learn from each other, and have a good time, and promote it as intentionally trying to get people connected so they can do stuff together.
Okay. Looking at ways to do things more eco-friendly, are there any blogs or publications that have suggestions for changes we can make?
Oh my God.
That we might not be thinking about, i.e. in normal household chores, etc.
Yeah, I would go online. I would do a search. A couple of good search words would be voluntary simplicity. A good search word would be permaculture. A good search word would be how to reduce your ecological footprint, how to build community. People have written volumes. People have written lots. Going back, one of my favorite, of course, was long ago. It was, the name of the book was Your Money or Your Life. That was one of the first books that I know of specifically about voluntary simplicity. Vicki Robbins was one of the authors of that book. There's tons of information about that online or at a bookstore, go for it.
So any more questions out there? We'll give it another second or two here. Well, thanks, Jan, for your great presentation this evening.
Yeah,
and just a reminder. Yeah, okay.
Let me just kind of go back and find one of the slides. I want to remind people that I need to go back. I want to remind about the site tour here in my property. Here we go. This is Saturday, April 30th, 1 p.m. I'd love to know where people are viewing from, probably mostly Eugene, but there may be some people from other places. If there could be, anybody could put in chat, maybe I could get my hands on the chat. I'd just like to know where people are viewing from. But I'll just close by saying there's opportunities everywhere to make common cause. There's more and more people who are starting to get the idea that we can't keep doing what we're doing. We can't keep the consuming free-for-all going. It's not even a good idea, even if it wasn't wrecking the planet. I think it wrecks the soul as well. But I invite people, if you live somewhere in Corvallis or somewhere, load up a car and come down. We'll forgive the eco footprint and the carbon. This is very much worthwhile, but there's probably more going on where you live than you know about. You just have to go out and find it.
Okay, great. Just a reminder, as you leave the seminar, to remember to fill out the short evaluation. And please join us next month as our seminar on Tuesday, May 17th at the same time. It's on adaptive gardening, gardening for life. Thanks, everybody.